Hi, I'm James Brookes, and welcome to From the Factory Floor, a conversational podcast about all things startup and tech, brought to you by the folks at thestartupfactory.tech. So, welcome to episode 24 of From the Factory Floor, joined today by Ian and also making a return, Mr. Remond. How are you doing?
All good, yeah. I've missed doing these, although I'm doing another two podcasts as well at the moment. So I've got plenty of podcasts on my plate, so to speak.
They should be putting me and Ian to shame then, if you're doing that many.
Only if I know a lot about the subject matter, and I'm really excited about today's actually. Certainly a little bit of a hero of mine, Elon Musk. So I've got plenty to say on this matter.
He's a bit of a bad boy, though, as well, Guy. You know,
that's what I like.
Oh, right. Well, my objective today is to try and get a word in, because I know I know you can tell us about your affinity to Musk through one of his products. Although I'm sure you'd like to be on SpaceX as well, but yeah,
I think everyone would want to be on SpaceX if they could be.
Oh, imagine working there; it must be just fantastic. But anyway, go on. I'll shut up. You kick us off.
It would be literally out of this world, Ian, wouldn't it, to work there?
I think we should cut off there. It's not going to get.
I won't be the last of the dad jokes, I promise.
Yeah. So, as obviously you alluded to there, Guy, this week's all about Elon Musk. I look at him both as a founder, so his early days with X.com. Through to PayPal, and then obviously the person he is today. So, I mean, obviously, Guy, you've got, like Ian mentioned, you kind of have an affinity with Mr. Musk. So, do you want to just sort of give us a little bit of a intro to him, and sort of for anyone listening out that doesn't happen to know who this man who invents flamethrowers and rockets is?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose people would maybe call me a little bit of a fanboy, but I like to think that the things that he does, I just admire. An interesting one, actually, just to start the conversation, would be to compare the difference, I think, between maybe Elon Musk and maybe myself and Ian and yourself. And, you know, what's the difference kind of between us all? And for me, you know, I think I'm pretty driven and I think I'm a bit of a risk taker. He takes it to the extreme. And I think for me, those are the two kind of biggest differences. You know, he has a vision, and the vision is something that most people can't imagine happening, that most people poo-poo it. Let's face it, you know, most people poo-pooed Tesla for years and years and years. You know, I watched Tesla when the Model S came out over in the States, and I kept an eye on it. And as soon as it came over to the UK, you know, I went down, test drove one in London, because there was only one outlet in the UK at that point, and it was in a shopping centre in London. I came home and ordered one, and I waited then 18 months, and they were sat on a nice tidy deposit of mine for 18 months. But that was fine because, you know, I knew what I was getting was unique, and I felt it was the future, and I wanted to be part of that. And I think everything he does generates the same type of emotion, as well as selling products. He kind of sells emotions in a way. You know, you buy into what the values and the aim of what he's trying to do, as well as the product itself. And I think that's why he has such a loyal following for people that probably are a little bit more risk takers than the average person, people that do look to the future and don't, you know, just try and play it safe all the time and do the here and now. And that's kind of why all the things that he does impress me and kind of get my buy-in, really.
Yeah, I mean, you asked kind of why he's different. I mean, obviously, you know, he was fired from PayPal back in 2008, but trousered $1.5 billion. So, you know, that's a starter. But I agree, as an individual, I think he's like kind of the 21st century Howard Hughes, isn't he? He's kind of full of bravado, but he's full of endeavour, a bit of human folly in him. You know, some of the tweets he did and the impact on the Tesla share price. I'd say he's a genius. I'd say he understands the science behind what he's trying to do. And he's kind of got a background that includes bankruptcy. You know, he's had cerebral malaria. He's had some pretty tough personal challenges, but I think he does epitomise, Guy, as you say, a focused entrepreneur who has got a vision, is relentless in his pursuit. And I just, you know, we're saying at the outset, imagine working at SpaceX. I think in terms of the charisma as a leader, in terms of risk taker, and this is where we're going, this is what we're trying to do. No one's done it before. the Falcon stuff, the Dragon. It's just remarkable that he has such a vision and he can kind of empower people to follow him. And I think that's one of the things in entrepreneurs, that you want to build that team, but you've got to have that clear vision and you've got to be sheer bloody minded. And I think he's got that in spades.
I mean, it's quite interesting that his background in doing economics and physics, and obviously being raised in South Africa, moving over to the US, and then obviously where he got to when he started off all the way back with Zip.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, he was sacked from there. Then obviously X.com into PayPal, where he was sacked again, and then into SpaceX, Tesla, and everything that's happened since, all the way through to the thing that I find probably the most interesting is more the neural link stuff these days, just with sort of my hobbies and whatnot. But he's tenacious and is almost obviously tenacious to the point of us being flawed, and that boundary between genius and madness just seems to be the most blurred person on that boundary.
He's a bit like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, there's this phrase, reality distortion field, wasn't there, about Jobs, where he was just, he believed it. I want to do this. Give me some glass that you can swipe. And it was, Steve, give over, you can't do that. But he did it. And I think, I was around Guy when I know you ordered your Tesla and you had to wait. And that's why when I first really looked at him as well. And he's just one of those people that has made a difference. And I want to die on Mars, but not on impact. It's just that amazing quote. And I think he's a good person for us to refer the founders that come to us to say, that's focus, that's been relentless. But you know what he's got? He's got an amazing work ethic as well. And I think that's tremendous.
He dedicates his life to what he does. I mean, anyone who runs the number of companies that he does has to dedicate their life to that purpose. His relationships have suffered because of it, and it's well documented how often he'd sleep in the office, particularly when they were building the Model 3, and to term his phrase, he was going through production hell. He tried to over-automate stuff and it wasn't working. The quality was poor. So then he had to get back in and he had to find the balance between manual human work and automation, and what could, there's still a balance between what robots can do better than humans and what humans can still do better than robots. Now that line will forever move in the direction of robots. Hopefully not to the point where it becomes, a bit Arnold Schwarzenegger like with Terminator.
Yeah, I don't think we need to worry about Skynet quite yet.
but yeah, and going back to what you were saying, Ian, he definitely comes into this field, and so does Steve Jobs. With all these geniuses, that they live on the edge of reality, but they have so much belief in what they're doing that most founders, let's face it, we tell our alumni within the Startup Factory that you got to listen to your customers, and their feedback will help drive what you build moving forward. Well, actually, they don't adopt that policy. They think they know better, and actually 9 times out of 10 they do know better. And nothing annoys Musk more than bureaucracy, for example, because it stifles innovation. And he's absolutely right. It's interesting now that NASA contracts their space development out to third-party companies, in particular SpaceX, and because government can't innovate like private sector companies. And Musk is an extreme example of that. And, you could argue that they cut corners or they take more risks. I wouldn't say they cut corners, but I think they probably take more risk in doing what they're doing, whereas governments, just by definition, have to play it safe and so on. And, you can see that the comparison at the moment is the vaccine delivery. The vaccine is, UK government actually is taking a slightly more risky approach in some ways, where, we've said that the number of instances where the vaccine has potentially had a detrimental impact on someone's health is so small, so insignificant, that the number of lives it saves is vastly in excess of any downside. Therefore, we keep taking it, and the British public has believed that, and they've carried on taking a vaccine. Then you go to Europe, where they're a little bit more, the culture is a little bit more anti-vaccine, and they're not willing to take the risk. They're willing to take a bigger risk in getting COVID, which is proven to be a far more risky strategy.
I mean, it's quite interesting though, because there's obviously with everything we said there, there's a big balance between taking risks and obviously Musk's self-belief versus almost the madness side of, he's documented his like firing sprees, how sometimes when he's sort of, I'm going to go into Bitcoin, how Bitcoin suddenly spikes through the roof. And obviously there was the cave rescue. So he's almost that definition of, he's so tenacious that he'll ignore everything else.
Yeah.
Like he did with Solar City, for example. But then he does get stuff done. And
he's an idealist, isn't he? And I think that's the point. I think that the word that came to mind, Guy, when you were talking there, he's an idealist. He's a visionary. The fact he's had 16 business failures and he's been fired here and there. Obviously Jobs was fired from Apple and then came back. These founders are not necessarily the right people to run the business. But what's impressed me about Musk now is that, he's kind of there, he's leading, and he is kind of obviously got a team, but he's running the business. We always say to our founders, look, your first 5 customers are key. So he rocks up and he wins NASA as a customer. I mean, you look at the NASA Artemis project, which is what I'm following at the minute, which is about being putting the first woman or the first person of colour onto the moon. He's passionate about that. So, and he does have this endeavour about the human spirit and humankind. About we've got to get to Mars because we're burning Earth out. So he's such a complex individual. I mean, I think he'd be brilliant, but a nightmare to work with. Because like you just said, James, you don't know what he's going to rock up with and talk about. Is it going to be Dogecoin? Is it going to be Neuralink? Is it going to be Falcon 9? But that's what you want. You're that inspirational leader as an entrepreneur that kind of goes, do you know what? I don't know how we're going to do this, but let's give it a go.
Taking that thought a little bit further, if you look at Hyperloop, he sees Hyperloop as the future of short-haul transport. We can't keep chucking planes in the air for an hour because of the carbon footprint that leaves. It's more justifiable over a longer period of time, but in short haul, it really isn't. So, he's come up with the concept of Hyperloop. But because he knows he can't run those companies, he's kind of involved in it on a very high level. And he's put a competition out there where, people had to compete each other to come up with designs for the transport system itself and how that's going to work, and the fact it's going to levitate in a vacuum above a track and travel at sort of 750 miles an hour potentially. That's a theoretical possibility, and it's going to get people from A to B very quickly, very cheaply, and very safely. So as well as the companies he runs, the idea is that he can't carry out. He tries to get the ball rolling in different ways, which is and he is, whatever people say about him, he's trying to change the world for the better. There's another one. There's actually a webinar this evening with a chap called Peter Diamandis who runs X Prize, and Musk has put up 100 million for a prize for the company that. And I don't know what the parameters are yet. I'll learn that tonight, I guess, when I listen to the webinars.
You put your bid in?
I'm just interested. It's on at 10 o'clock in the UK. I think it's 2 p.m. Pacific time. And the competition is to pull carbon out of the atmosphere. So not only try and reduce carbon emissions with electric cars and solar energy and stuff that he's doing there, he's trying to get technology that you could build around the world that extracts carbon from cities, for example, so it becomes a healthier place to live. The solution to climate change is never going to be one thing that happens. It's going to be an amalgamation of a number of initiatives that really do make a difference. And his aim, most governments, right, by 2050, we want to become carbon neutral. His aim is not to become carbon neutral. It's to get back to where we were pre-industrial levels. Again, it's the size of that vision. And he's thinking about how we do that. So yes, we can reduce the carbon emissions in using electric cars and using renewable energy and so on. But we can also maybe reverse climate change by pulling carbon out of the air. And the power generation is from renewable sources to do that. So it's not only carbon neutral in terms of the power that's used, it's taking the carbon out. So really interesting. I'm looking forward to that webinar tonight. I'm definitely going to listen to that.
Yeah, he's the Tesla solar panels and the Powerwall battery stuff as well. And of course, he gives the IP away as well, doesn't he, for the greater good on the Tesla battery. I mean, people forget, I think, as well, that kind of he he didn't found Tesla, but he kind of bought into it in, was it 2004? So he's stuck with it. So he's not someone who just says, who kind of flits from this to that. It's a constant stream of idea and innovation and graft and work ethic. And that, just pulling it back, literally come back down to earth in terms of, what we look for in a founder entrepreneur in Manchester. It's that spirit of adventure, that kind of foresight, that idealism, but that work ethic. And for me, it's his work ethic. You go on his Twitter feed and he's doing something every day that is just wow. You're quite envious. So the difference between me and him is he's obviously got just more energy and more capacity to process and do stuff. But I think he will go down in history as, like Edison. It was one of those scientist founders that was just relentless in his pursuit of his goals. And money isn't the motivator. You trouser 1.5 billion, you then go ahead and do Tesla, SpaceX, all those other things. Motivation, his personal motivation, is another great character.
Every penny, though, he's a massive risk taker, Ian. Every penny he had, he at one point, I can't remember what year it was a Christmas in 2016 or whatever it was, around that time, that SpaceX and Tesla were both on the edge of bankruptcy, and he was at the point where he couldn't pay the wages. And he literally, Christmas Eve, I believe, around about midnight, managed to secure funding that allowed him to pay his people. But every single penny he had gone into it. He literally he went back living with his mum and dad. That is commitment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's been married 3 times. His family life isn't great. His personal life, he obviously hasn't been able to create that as much as success, and that's obviously a degree of imbalance. I mean, he must be fantastic to have around, but he must be a nightmare to live with as well, I think.
Well, I think that sums up the how he is to work for. Again, we've not met him personally, we don't know this, but you read the stuff, and some of it is probably wrong, but if you read the right articles, you'd hope that they're fairly balanced. And he is a hard taskmaster by all accounts. He doesn't suffer fools, and he's decisive. He will take action, and it will be in the best interest of the company, not in the best interest of that person. That said, when you've got someone like that as a leader, they are inspirational, and you buy into the vision, and you're prepared to put up with the fact that you're probably going to be burnt out after 3 or 4 years, and it's going to take you some time to recover from that role. But maybe in your head and in reality, you've made such a difference that it's worthwhile.
Yeah, there's a great quote, isn't he, which I think I kind of just checked up on before this, that he said, when something's important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favour. And goodness me, that's brave, bold thinking. It really is. It really is. Like I say, I think as you look at the history, he's a bit like Howard Hughes. There's Machiavellian traits in him, but I think he's a sensational guy to kind of have around, and as a role model for anyone to look at. That ability to keep going, be relentless, but have pursuit of higher goals, as you say, Guy. It's kind of doing it with a purpose, with a vision. His work ethic is just awesome.
I think it's one of the things you've always said, Ian, as well, is that it goes back to the point you said about, obviously, he's willing to invest, do everything and take the risk, is that, he never does it for the money. And I think it's one of the things you've always said to founders is money's the applause, not necessarily why you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think he embraces that, and how he then approaches companies and how tenacious he is. Now, whether there needs to be more balance just with his personal life, I don't know, but it's almost what he's achieved and how he's achieved it. I don't think anyone could ever sort of take that away. Like you say, he will go down in history as one of these people that are remembered, a bit like Jobs was.
Yeah, and we're not good. You look at the bad press that Tesla get, and they just released their Q1 safety report, and that innovation and risk, back to the analogy, Guy, to the inoculation, the vaccination, that risk of about doing something that is game changing. We do as a society have to support people like that are willing to put everything out there to make a difference and do stuff. We've got to support innovators like Musk.
We have, and the press and the government seize upon when there's a crash, and they're quite right to investigate those things as they as they should do. But I think it's already very apparent, and the data supports the fact that the safety features and the part self-driving level sort of 3 automated driving that Tesla has is a far safer way to travel than if you were driving it yourself. And the facts already speak for themselves. And it does annoy me when the press jump on the fact by virtue of the fact that they send this negative message out. People listen and are then apprehensive about getting one of these cars. And you say, well, A, you don't have to have it in automation mode. You can just have it and drive it as you would do normally. And B, actually, if you did have it in this semi-automated mode and you're sat in the driver's seat and concentrating, by the way, not being an idiot and sat in the passenger seat or on the back seat, like a lot of these people are.
Not popping the wheel up with an orange, I think is one of the pictures that's done the rounds recently of people trying to get around it.
Yeah, exactly. And, it will save more lives than it costs, and that's where we should be heading. The negative press kind of annoys me sometimes, and one of the things, James, that you've put for discussion is why is he divisive, and it kind of adds on to what Ian was saying a second ago, that you need somebody to question the reasons why government make decisions, for example, or other people say things. And I think it's really healthy to have that tenaciousness where you do question things and you don't automatically accept rulings from governments and stuff like that. And Musk has a beef with the SEC in America and also the short traders and there's a lot of seriousness around that. But then he makes it into a humorous thing, and I love the fact when the short traders kept shorting Tesla and saying it was never going to work. And, the major car manufacturers were just laughing at them because they said, no one's ever going to go down that route. And his response to the short traders was to produce some bright red shorts and sell them online and send them to the worst offenders, tweet about it. And basically, if you pardon the expression, just take the piss out of them because, they were making money on the back of such a noble cause failing, and actually were proven wrong.
Yeah, people forget that Tesla floated on the US stock market. I think it was 2010. It's the first car manufacturer to float since Ford in the 1950s. So again, there's some mainstream business success he's had there. Yeah, I think for me, people who aren't familiar with it, go and look at the history of Nikola Tesla, who's also one of Musk's own personal role models and heroes as a scientist, and look at the trauma and personal journeys he went through. The zigzags along the way. I think the phrase "every silver lining has a cloud" is kind of what Musk has encountered. But he's ignored the naysayers. He's just kind of kept his belief, and I think that for me is the principle. If you have a vision, stick to it. Yes, you need to take people along with you along the way. But, if you've got a vision, stick with it. And he epitomises that for me.
I think we can go on about Elon and sort of where he is these days. So, I think we could do a full hour if we really wanted to, and then some after. But sort of we're getting to the stage now, I think, where we sort of like to try and wrap these things up because we're nearly at the half an hour mark. So I know we've said a lot, and it's what I'd ask you guys, obviously, with your experience with founders, is what one aspect of Musk would you suggest founders really look at as inspiration or something to look at in terms of their startup? What would that one thing be? Guy, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think it's something we've covered quite a bit. I'm going to give you one serious one. I'm going to give you one not so serious one. So my serious one is that it is work ethic, and Ian has called it out several times, and I have as well. To really make something work that you believe in, you've really got to work at it and work tirelessly and lead by example. So I think work ethic is definitely one of the key traits for any entrepreneur. And Musk probably goes too far, as we've said, in terms of, it's not done his relationships and so on any good. But the point is that if you really work hard at something, you really believe in something, and you've got a vision, then you can make it happen. That's my serious one. My not so serious one is that he comes up with some great names for the companies, doesn't he? Ian's just touched on one, Tesla, and it's named after Nikola Tesla, and obviously one of his heroes. Well, that's the one I wanted to highlight, James. You've just stolen my thunder. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But the Boring Company, what a name that is. Just amazing. Still makes me chuckle every time I think about that. So I think naming is important, but he does come up with some great names.
Although I don't know if you actually bought one of the flamethrowers or not. I don't know anyone who did from the Boring Company. Ian, how about you?
He's got the mentality of a survivor, not a victim. So he's got all those attributes we've talked around, but I think it's his mentality as well. Sheer bloody mindedness, tenacity. When the going gets tough, every silver lining has a cloud. Lots of great ideas. How do you turn great ideas into products, into scalable companies? Getting NASA as your first customer, I think it's just a brilliant, brilliant example. You can say to people, I'm only a startup. How do I get a customer? Well, Elon Musk got NASA as a customer. And I'm really watching this NASA Artemis project because, again, that I think will validate him as an individual guy, as someone who has actually made a mark on humanity and has a purpose, So, all-round good guy. And, I think someone who, as a role model, has got so many qualities. There's a bit of baggage there. There is with everyone. The bravado and the ego come out, but the humility and the humour on his Twitter is worth following as well.
He's very interesting, isn't he? However you look at him, doesn't matter whether you love him or hate him, he's super interesting.
Yeah.
And he's making a mark on this world, and what a way to go.
Absolutely.
So I think that about wraps it up for this episode then. So thank you very much, chaps. So Ian, I think we're back on next week, and rather than talking about inspirational founders, I mean, you could describe Mike as, I suppose, we're actually talking with another one of our own founders. So it's going to be all about fintech, and with Mike Common from Nevo Hub.
Yeah, Mike's an interesting guy. He's kind of, I think Elon's a bit of a one-off, isn't he? Let's be honest. Mike was the kind of co-founder of Nevo, one of our very first Startup Factory projects, really interesting background. And the story really with Nevo, where Mike is, we're now kind of looking at our second funding round, scaling into 20 employees, hit the $1 million ARR as a SaaS model. So again, I think he's got some real good, warts and all story to tell of that journey and that experience. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with Mike.
That'd be good. And thanks again, Guy.
Hey, listen, thanks for inviting me. If you've got any more like that, I'll be here very quickly.
Good stuff.
I'm sure we've got plenty. So thanks very much, you guys, and thanks for everyone listening.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Guy. See you later.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Ian.
I think that just about wraps things up here. If you have any thoughts or questions on anything we said today, get in touch, whether that be through our Twitter @RealTSF or email at hello@startupfactory.tech, or feel free to drop in for a coffee and a chat. As ever, thanks for listening.